From a deep dive Bible study on tithing, it revealed that the tithing system cannot still exist. Let's explore what the Bible reveals about tithing. Please stay with me as I take you through the tithing system. Watch all the way through to get the full understanding and truth about tithing. Let's dive in. Let's begin with the history of tithing as outlined in Genesis 14 and Hebrews 7, 1-10 and Leviticus 18. The priests were chosen by God from Aaron's tribe, Levites. Numbers 18:20-21. Then the Lord said to Aaron, "You shall have no inheritance in their land, nor shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the children of Israel." The tithe was established for the support of the Levites. "Behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tithes in Israel as an inheritance in return for the work which they perform, the work of the tabernacle of meeting." The priest had no inheritance, as noted in Numbers 18:20, no other way to feed themselves or to live by but the tithe. No book deal, no speaking engagements, no inheritance, but only what was given by God. The tithe, sacrificial system, the priestly work. Numbers 18:23. The priests lived in the temple and did the sacrificial work 24 hours of each day. Without blood there is no remission, forgiveness of sin, animal sacrifices. Hebrews 9:19 and 20. For when Moses had spoken every precept to all the people according to the law, he took the blood of calves and of goats with water and scarlet wool and hyssop and sprinkled both the book and all the people, saying, "This is the blood of the testament which God hath enjoined unto you." Medical work. Leviticus 13. In addition to the sacrificial work and the yearly sacrifice for sins, the priests also were tasked with the medical work. They determined if a person was sick with a contagious disease such as leprosy, and also determined if they were healed. That is why Jesus told the lepers. In Luke 17, Jesus told the lepers to go and show themselves to the priest, and the priest would examine them and determine if they were healed. What are the tithes as given in the Bible? First, 1/10 increase of the land. Leviticus 27:30-33 states that all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's. It is holy unto the Lord. Corn, wine, oil, spices, seeds, fruit, animals. Deuteronomy 14:22-23. Leviticus 27:30-32. Malachi 3:10-11's literal food, literal storehouse. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Verse 11. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall the vine cast her fruit before its time in the field. The tithe was also to feed the poor, fatherless, strangers, widows. Deuteronomy 14:28. It is said that food and animal was what they had back then as money, but the Bible records that both in the Old and New Testament there was money, or its equivalent, silver, gold, copper, dimes, Ezra 2:69 and Luke 21:1-4, Matthew 23:23. Jesus talked about tithe in the New Testament. He names and mentioned it as mint equals spice, cumin equals spice, anise equals spice. Why did Jesus and his disciples not tithe Jesus, the new heavenly priest? Hebrews 4:14-16. Jesus and his disciples did not tithe because Jesus fulfilled the sacrificial system and forgave sins even before his death. He was the Lamb that takes away the sins of the earth. Jesus did not return tithe or partake of the laws of the sacrificial system because he fulfilled those laws, and the priestly system was no longer needed because he, not the blood of goats and bulls, was the blood needed for forgiveness of sins. Hebrews 13-14. For if the blood of bulls and of goats, and the ashes of an heifer, sprinkling the unclean, sanctifieth to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God? The priestly role that was supported by tithe ended with Jesus. Now we understand the principles of how tithing came about, and that it provided food for the priests who lived in the temple and did the temple work 24 hours a day, including the sacrifices for sin and the sin offerings. The sacrificial laws and system were nailed to the cross and fulfilled by Jesus. This included tithing, an integral part of the sacrificial system. From he entered into the world, he was the only lamb needed for forgiveness of sins. Hebrews 9:15. And for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the First Testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. Jesus forgives sins without sacrifice. Matthew 9:2 and 3. And behold, they brought to him a man sick of the palsy, lying on a bed. And Jesus, seeing their faith, said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, be of good cheer, thy sins be forgiven thee. And behold, certain of the scribes said within themselves, This man blasphemeth. And Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, Wherefore think ye evil in your hearts? Verse 6. But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins. Matthew 26:28. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Matthew 9:2. And behold, some people brought to him a paralytic, lying on a bed. And when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, Take heart, my son, your sins are forgiven. Jesus came as our Redeemer to abolish the entire sacrificial system, which included the tithe. Even the temple was broken down as Jesus revealed. Luke 21:5. These things which you see, the days will come in which not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down. Because it was no longer needed, Jesus fulfilled the sacrificial laws in Numbers 18 and Exodus 30. Hebrews 9:13-15. For if the blood of bulls and of goats and the ashes of an heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctifieth to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God. Seeing then that we have a great high priest who is passed into the heavens, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. The old system, law, abolished, Jesus the New Testament. And for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the First Testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. Hebrew 9:24. For Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us. Hebrews 10:1. For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect. This proves that the sacrificial system that included the tithing system was fulfilled at Jesus' death and nailed to the cross. Jesus took up the priestly work, and the earthly temple, including the tithing system, was abolished at his death, because there is no more need for anyone to live in the temple and offer a sacrifice and do the daily temple work. The Jews tithe and the temple. Why the Jews still tithe and plan to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem? Because the Jews do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah, they continue the tithing and the priestly system even today. The only reason they do not sacrifice animals is because there is currently no temple. However, they still have priests from the tribe of Aaron. As the Bible records, the priest who received tithe was only from Aaron's lineage. The Jews deny that Jesus is the Messiah and high priest, and so they still tithe. Are Christians also denying Jesus as high priest and continuing the tithing system? We see that the tithing system was established along with the sacrificial system to support the priests from Aaron's tribe only, the Levites. This system ended with Jesus' death, and Jesus himself became our high priest in heaven. The tithing system ended with Jesus' death. We no longer need to sacrifice or tithe as that system has ended. The reason the church members continue tithing is because of 1. Fear of a curse held over the member's head as a threat to give the tithe to those who are not priests or chosen from Aaron's tribe, and believing that as you give, you get. As if God is a barter system. Many members of churches give even more than the 10%, believing that the more they give, the more they get. Of note, however, tithe was food, an animal, not money. Churches that continue to deny Jesus as the heavenly high priest, and who, by their actions, tells us that the sacrificial system is still in effect by collecting money as tithe. And there is the greatest factor greed, and love of money that drive many to continue this abolished system? This is very significant because Jesus would have to deny himself as high priest. He would have to hold the sacrificial system in place for the tithe to continue. So my final question is, are we denying that Jesus fulfilled the sacrificial laws and denying that Jesus, not earthly men, is the high priest by giving money as tithe to churches? Are we joining the Jews in denying Jesus as high priest and Messiah by continuing this part of the sacrificial system? The decision is yours to make. Your thoughts are welcomed. Please leave me a comment. If this video helped you, please like, share, and subscribe. Stay in the Word.